Hello, everyone. I'm Casey Loftman, Editor-in-Chief of Food Engineering Magazine. Joining me today is Fred Schonenberg, CEO of Venture Fuel, and we're going to be talking about some of the supply chain challenges faced by the food and beverage industry during the ongoing coronavirus pandemic. Fred, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me, Casey. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. And as I said, I'd like to discuss some supply chain issues. So to get started, can you give me kind of a big picture overview of what are the biggest supply chain challenges facing food and beverage right now, and how are those being handled?
Yeah, I think there's sort of two sides of the same challenge. With some, it's staffing is the quick answer. With some companies, there's an enormous short-term pressure to get people in to help. And then others have zero need for staffing, right? So there's this sort of dynamic happening. And you add in sort of the social distancing rules, which are different from state to state. It's really just a lot to juggle, no matter which side of that coin you're on. But I think that's a big challenge that's happening, as well as some of the overseas production challenges. If folks are sourcing globally, there's a lot of difficulty there getting the right things.
Right. And as you mentioned, for food and beverage processors, the biggest challenge right now is just handling this sustained nationwide surge in demand. It's not necessarily a food safety issue, and they're taking a lot of steps to address worker safety, but making sure that they can meet the needs of everyone while still getting, as you mentioned, some of those materials that might be coming from overseas or places like that can be a big challenge. So is there anything in particular that processors are struggling is too strong of a word to use, but is there any particular area where they're looking at, okay, we might have some challenges here?
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting on the sort of staffing pieces, there's a number of startups, and a lot of what Venture Fuel does is we help established companies adapt to changing times by connecting them with startups and new tech. There's been a pretty nice influx of startups. There's one called Winolo, but the idea is sort of this gig economy, like on-demand staffing, essentially, that's vetted, but also is a little bit more holistic, right? So it's not taking advantage of the workers, but giving people an ability to hire kind of quickly. And I think it's an interesting role to play right now when so many people are out of work, but so many people need staff. So it's like the perfect marketplace moment for that industry. So I think a lot of people in the food and beverage space are starting to look to places like that to hire quickly, even if it's short term, without bringing on tremendous overhead and full-time employees yet, because they don't know if this is just a surge that's going to go away, or if this is going to be a longer term solution.
Right. And you mentioned something very interesting there, which is we're seeing in a lot of industries, huge increases in unemployment. We're seeing a lot of increases in unemployment claims as data comes in from the last few weeks. But in the food industry, grocery stores are hiring, food processors are hiring, transportation and logistics companies are hiring. But as you mentioned, these are positions where people can't just walk in off the street and start doing them immediately. So they have to have a little bit of that background of being able to say, okay, here's how we can get people up to speed quickly. And it sounds like there are some companies working to fill that gap, to be able to say, okay, we can give you some qualified employees who can get up and running very soon.
Yeah, and that's the key, right? Is you need to kind of upskill those employees for whatever your system is. So part of it is, you need people that understand the space to some degree, or some process in place to get them trained quickly on your processes, which is also a stress too, right? When you're running really lean and you're running a million miles an hour and you have to fill this surge, it's hard to take the time to train these employees. So just thinking through that dynamic and then helping those new employees upskill quickly so they can start to really help, I think is pretty interesting. And there's an opportunity. There's a lot of people that where they were working has been disrupted. So it's a way for them to make cash in the short term and potentially, move into a different career if it fits them and it fits the workload long term. But I think there's all the time in chaos, there's opportunity. And when things feel like they're being disrupted, there's usually an opportunity there for innovation or someone to come in and figure out a better way to do things that then sticks for the long term.
Right. And you mentioned the training piece of it, which I know is something that's tough right now because as you mentioned, processors are running at capacity right now. And in addition to that, they're trying to make sure that they're following some of these social distancing guidelines and things like that. So it's, you can't just take a bunch of new employees and plop them all down in a classroom type of setting. You want to have some space and things like that. So that adds kind of another layer of complexity here.
Yeah, and in an ideal world, you have that training, that onboarding, digitized to some degree, something where people can take it remotely without taking your staff off the floor. The reality is that always sounds nice, but you don't realize you need that till you need it. So I think a lot of people are racing to get that into place, so that you can kind of teach the class once, take them off the floor once to show them how to do it, and create some sort of library that new hires can watch and get up to speed, and just try and help get everybody rowing in the same direction as quickly as possible.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And one thing in particular that you and I discussed before we started recording here was that supply chains they're generally pretty stable. It's not necessarily an issue of we can't get something, but processors are looking at it and saying, okay, here are some areas where maybe we can build some redundancies, or some areas where we can shore up our supply chains to make sure that we don't have to worry about things coming in from overseas or things going out for sale overseas. So what are you seeing in terms of companies trying to adjust on the fly to that?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I feel like things are getting more local and more regional, and I think the upside to local and regional is there's relationships. It's your neighbor, right, to a certain degree, less of a vendor that's far away, that's just giving you the best price and you no loyalty to them. I think in times where things are challenging, having somebody closer to you that you guys can come up with creative solutions to solve some of these problems and think creatively about redundancies. So in a lot of ways, what's old is new again, right? It's going to your local suppliers and thinking through how you all can work together. I think that's going to be a trend that is necessary this moment because of everything going on, but I think might be something that even as things get back to normal, people are going to start looking at this and going, hey, like it's okay if it costs slightly more to do something more regional or local, because I have the assurance that I can get it in times of trouble. So I think people are out looking for whatever resources they need wherever they can get them, but they're starting to look a little bit closer to home and maybe willing to pay a slight premium for that.
Okay, and there's one area that I particularly want to discuss with you, because I know that you do a lot of work in the dairy industry. That's a really interesting challenge because if people are flocking to the grocery stores to buy milk, that's something that you can't just necessarily flip a switch and say, okay, we're producing more a lot faster. There are shelf life concerns and all of the challenges that go into getting fresh dairy products into stores. So how is that industry specifically adapting to some of these challenges to be able to meet that surge in demand while still operating with all of their normal constraints?
Yeah, I mean, I think the good news is dairy's been around for a very long time and has been through just about every type of economic situation or some version of it. So they certainly, especially the more established players, have been through some version of these challenges. Not to say that it's easy, but they're well positioned to kind of take advantage, and that's the wrong word, but to optimize the opportunity here. And I think what's interesting is when things are hard, people turn to what they love and what's healthy and is important. So you also see like a return to the staples like milk. So I think dairy's in a good spot from that standpoint, and I think their supply chain is a well-oiled machine. So yeah, they need to be really smart and careful about how fast they push things. But the good news is, and you mentioned this, right? Like from a health standpoint, milk is incredibly good for you. It's sustainable. It's all these things that are important now as we're all sort of at home and worried about our health. And they don't have some of the limitations of other products. So there certainly are challenges with shelf stable, and they can't just flood the market and put milk everywhere, right? But the supply chain is very well oiled. They know when, you know, there's a need in certain markets, and how kind of to up ramp there. So I think they're doing a really good job from what I know.
Right. And, you know, it is an industry that's very used to kind of operating on, you know, sort of just in time. You know, when you look at the constraints placed by milk production and shelf life and all of those things. So it seems like they're maybe in a little better position to tackle this than some other industries would be.
Yeah, I think they're in a really good spot. They're used to just in time. They're used to getting things delivered quickly, you know, in challenging circumstances. So in a lot of ways, they've been, you know, preparing for this for a long time. And I think one thing that's really interesting, I mean, we get asked a lot about new technologies and startups, and one that has been brought to our attention a bunch is called Loop, which essentially enables people to order household goods directly and have them delivered in reusable containers. And what's really funny is it's very cutting edge, right? And it's raised all this money out of Silicon Valley, but it's the milkman model. That's all it is. It's just repositioned to do more than just milk. And so in a lot of ways, the milk industry is going to come out of this stronger and better positioned than most industries. So I think they're in a great place, actually.
Okay. Yeah. And I know that you do a lot of work with groups such as the California Milk Advisory Board. So how are some of those industry groups and some of those associations, how are they handling this? What's their role that they're playing in trying to support these industries?
They're unbelievable. You know, we help them run something called the Real California Milk Accelerator, which helps to find innovation in dairy milk. So new products, new innovations using liquid milk. So we got a lot of exposure to their organization through that, and just watching, they just care so deeply about the dairy farmers and producers, and they're on the front lines of all of this, finding out what's going on, giving advice to all their constituents on how to navigate some of these challenges. They're just they're really thoughtful umbrella group that cares deeply about, you know, the people that are part of it, and are always looking for ways not only to promote and market milk, but support them when things are challenging and moving so quickly. So I would say, you know, obviously I'm a little biased, but I've always been so impressed with the way they think about challenges and opportunities, and how they really empower everybody that's part of their group to kind of see through some areas that are sometimes chaotic. So they're really doing a lot to understand where things are, where they're going, and how to support their members.
Great, that's good to hear. Well, Fred, that's all the time we have today, but thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me. You gave me a lot of really good information here, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. I hope you found this worthwhile.
Awesome, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.